It's 12 o'clock at night and I just got back from watching the freaking Backrooms, one of two massive indie films that are coming out in the span of 1 week of each other. What a time to be alive, my god. But I want to give you guys a dual face movie review since it's indie and we're on brand. My first impressions of the film and if it's worth a movie ticket. So going into the movie, I did know what the Backrooms was. But even with all my years on the internet, I never sat down and really watched a lot of Backrooms related content. So over the past week and a half, I spent some time trying to get familiar with Kane Pixels' catalog, who you may know for popularizing the Backrooms and making this movie, right? A film director at 20 years old, man. That kid's younger than me. I look like I'm like 16. They'll still call me young though. Kane initially made his Backrooms series when he was 16 and spent the last 4 years developing and fleshing out his version of the world. And it horrifically shined on the silver screen, man. This movie benefits so much from watching Kane's videos in advance to get a better understanding of how the Backrooms operates, and also gives you a lot of fun references to catch as you watch the film. But if you're going in knowing basically nothing, it still stands so strongly as a terrifyingly existential, just intentional film. The best way I can describe this movie, well, obviously without getting into spoilers, is if you took the Backrooms and mixed it with Get Out and Smile. It looked like an A24 film with a beautiful Backrooms coat of paint. And a lot of the weird sort of cinematography and pacing and sort of slow, creepy world building that you would see from one of the Smile films. The cast that Kane picked were really good. I really didn't know many of them going into the film, which you could say is actually a good thing, because now whenever I see these actors, I'll be like, oh, that's the guy from the Backrooms. That's the girl from the Backrooms. The only person I did know was Mark Duplass, which I won't say what his role was in the film, but unfortunately he's not in it too much. But if you don't know Mark, man, you gotta watch the Creep movies. Creep 1 and 2 are also kind of like found footage styles of horror movie, where you're watching it all from the perspective of someone recording on their phone, and he plays the main antagonist. Guys, both the films are on Netflix. Watch them. Goated actor. Amazing films, and they were made on like tiny microscopic budgets. They're essentially indie films. I highly recommend Creep 1 and 2. But everything in the film just felt so believable. Yes, the pacing was a little slow at times. There were definitely moments throughout the film where Kane really wanted the viewer to sort of get lost in the atmosphere, and he let scenes linger for long periods of time. You are in very similar spaces for a vast majority of the movie, and yet everything in the film felt so intentional. Every scene doing its best to sort of warp and manipulate your thinking and try to get you into this like just uneasy state as you fall into the world of the Backrooms, which is beautifully explained in the film. There are so many connections between our main characters and what the Backrooms represent that the film does dive into as you watch it. You can see Kane's talents in directing, as practically every shot in that film felt like an art piece. There were so many creative and interesting ways that Kane showed the existential nonsense that is the Backrooms. You'll get a shot of just a pile of furniture sitting in the middle of a giant room, and you're just supposed to be like, yeah, that makes sense. Or you'll get a scene with a wardrobe that, with the perspective of the shot, looks like it's being dragged on forever down a hallway, and then the character runs down the hallway and oh, guess what, that wardrobe was going down the entire hallway. It does these things that subliminally just kind of mess with you, and it's awesome. Even down to the acting, everything felt so intentional. There's a moment in the movie where our main character finds one of those like small cubby hallways when he's exploring the Backrooms, and he goes down to start crawling through it, and he is so mesmerized in the moment of what the hell he's seeing, so confused and bewildered, that as he goes in, he just bumps his head on the top of the roof as he's halfway in it, and that got a chuckle out of me. It was amusing to me how authentic that really felt. Like, if I was in Clark's shoes, Clark is the name of the main character, I'd also probably hit my head like a dumbass as I'm trying to go through this cubby because I'm too bewildered at what the hell I'm looking at right now. There was a surprising amount of humor in this movie. It was funny the way the characters just kind of bounced off of each other and were making fun of the ridiculous world that they were now trapped in. Instead of the jokes kind of ruining the tension of the film, it made it feel more like we're actually watching people that are just kind of having goofs and gaffs with each other right before they're about to get murked by whatever monster is lurking in those freaking depths, man. I think, though, the coolest part of the film, it happens occasionally, and you will know when it does, but the movie pays such homage to its found footage roots, and I think that when it does, it is by far the best parts of the film. I was gasping throughout my entire time watching it. There were little decisions and moves and twists and plot structures and little details that were so intentionally placed and smartly done. It was blowing me away at how well done it was, at how sharp it was. The movie grabs you by the seat of your pants and runs your ass down the freaking liminal space hallway, and there is no stop. You are on the Backrooms ride. Is it a perfect movie? Of course not. I do still think that there were some moments that were fairly slow, especially when they first end up discovering the Backrooms, for example. And the third act can kind of throw you for a loop if you don't go into watching the film understanding at least a little bit about the Backrooms or watching some of Kane Parsons' series. But as a fan, being able to fill in those little details and be like, oh my god, that set up that, or that answered this question that the videos never explained, or oh, so that's how that works. It gives you so many answers, and I think explained a lot of gaps in the world that Kane has created that I think a lot of diehard fans will really get a kick out of. But again, I need to reiterate how on its own, it just stands as such a good horror movie. Like, I feel like I can go and take my dad to go watch this film in the theaters right now, and he'd love it because it's so different. It's so interesting. It's so different from what you usually see in theaters nowadays when it comes to horror. That's the beauty of having young directors like Kane at the helm of something with a creative vision, and he's given the budget to just roll with it. The Backrooms film had a budget of $10 million. That's really not a lot for one of these films. They made a lot of real life props. It had really big sets. It had a good cast. It was fairly long. It didn't look cheap at all. Even the found footage segments. I was sitting there in the theater trying to figure out if Kane was the one that made some of the freaking CGI you see in this movie. Some of the spaces, are these just Kane's Blender worlds that he was able to create with a bigger team because they had an actual budget to throw at essentially what would have been a Kane Pixels Backrooms video, just with the budget of a traditional film. It was amazing. I generally cannot recommend this movie enough. I know I glaze. I do a lot of glazing on this channel, but I cover stuff that I really do enjoy. And this movie, all right, here comes the hot take, fellas, if you wanted one of those. This movie is what the FNAF films should have been. As much as I love FNAF, when we went from game 1 to the end of Scott's run, right? And then finally we pivoted to the Steel Wool era of FNAF games with Security Breach, and we had basically a reboot of the franchise and the story. Some of the essence of FNAF was lost. Every couple iterations the game had. From 1 to 2, in essence, was lost. From 2 to 5, in essence, was lost. And of course, at the end of Ultimate Custom Night, in essence, was lost. So when FNAF finally hit the big screen after being in development hell for almost a decade, and Scott struggling to find a studio that would actually pick him up and make a movie that Scott actually wanted to make, it finally came out, and I mean, it was good. It had a lot of great elements, but I would not say that it properly adapted what Five Nights at Freddy's is. Maybe Scott Cawthon would disagree with me, and I can't really argue with the man that made my childhood. He was the one scaring the crap out of me when I was 10 years old watching Five Nights at Freddy's playthroughs. But the movies to me always felt like the books. We're not adapting the game's essence into a movie. We're adapting a story that Scott came up with that's based on Five Nights at Freddy's. While the Backrooms took what made the found footage, creepy eeriness, vibes, liminal, existential dread, nonsense, nightmare world and turned it into a proper film. It pays so much homage. Again, the only way I can describe it is if you took a found footage video that Kane made and gave it a film production. And again, it still is a normal movie. The third act especially feels more like a normal movie than a found footage Kane Pixels video, but it does the series so much justice. The movie feels like it would be in this playlist of all of the Backrooms videos that Kane made. It's crazy. I don't know how bro did it at 20 years old, only doing this for 4 years. Notice how his movie came out like that, like relatively quickly with not a lot of issues, and his vision was so freaking solid. I love FNAF, by the way. Scott, if you're watching this somehow for some strange reason, I love your series. Please don't think I hate you. I really do love FNAF. I got the posted there for a reason. My opinions come from a place of love, truly. Since I've already completely derailed into tangents, I'll keep talking about FNAF. Like, I always thought that FNAF 1 should have felt more like FNAF 1 the game. More of the ambience, the dark elements, the weird sort of angles and claustrophobic shots. That's something Backrooms did really well. I said before, every single shot feels like an art piece because everything is so intentionally made to mess with your mind and make you feel uneasy that you end up with shots that just are beautiful, unsettlingly beautiful. While the first FNAF film felt a lot more like it was trying to be a cheesy kids film, which it was PG-13 compared to Backrooms' rated R, but still, I think they could have dived into the horror or at least the dread of it a little bit more. Like, something I always wanted out of the FNAF 1 movie was a scene with the animatronics where you can see the dead souls communicating with one another. I always pictured the scene to be dark, decrepit, completely isolated. There's no one in the restaurant whatsoever. A scene that's supposed to make you understand, like, oh wow, these animatronics are kids that are stuck in essentially a prison for years, trapped there, not being able to do anything, lost in their own terrible thoughts and remnants or whatever the hell, agony, right? Thinking about what they lost, what they used to have, who their killer was, how they despise them, how they just want to go home because they're just kids. I always wanted a scene like one of the animatronics are lost in a dreadful thought of doubt. They're spiraling, they're thinking about how they miss home and they just want to leave. They're curled up into a ball beside a wall in the dining hall. Maybe it's Bonnie, and then Freddy walks over and it shows like the spirits. It shows the kids talking to each other while simultaneously cutting to the animatronics just stilly like staring at each other like this. And it's supposed to be this very emotional scene that just, it's supposed to make you feel like the restaurant is real. The FNAF movie never felt real. It had moments where it tried, but it never pushed into making itself feel real. It was too busy building pillow forts, having a grand old time with Abby loving the animatronics and missing their friends, that we missed the entire point of what made FNAF FNAF, which is the dread and the eeriness and the depression. And I want depression, man. Crazy tangent, I know. So I'll end it with actually answering my question. Do I think that this film is worth a movie? Yes! Yes, it's worth a movie ticket. Yes, I give it like a 9 out of 10. It was gas, bro. Hell yeah, I'd watch it again. And if you're curious, I know I only have one Backrooms video up on my channel. I have recorded me reacting to most of Kane's catalog of videos, and they'll be going up over the next couple of days to a week. I'll do my best to get them out as fast as I can. I'm working on a lot of projects right now, so the schedule's a little packed. Wow, what a movie. I think so far it is definitely my favorite movie of the year. I'm curious to see if Digital Circus tops it. That'd be quite the feat because I really enjoyed that movie and I hope they make more. I want to learn more about the stuff that was said in the movie that I can't tell you about, right? Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you around.